At a number 10 spot, we have the Kifune Shrine. This place is very well known as a beautiful sightseeing spot in Kyoto, Japan, but for many locals, the dark history makes them have a different perspective of the place. Kifune Shrine is known as the birthplace of a terrifying ritual known as the Ishunokoku Mari, which refers to placing a curse on someone by placing a nail through a straw effigy, which is sort of like a voodoo doll. Then you nail it onto a tree around the hours of 1 to 3 a.m. We did a 3 a.m. video, so you already know how cursed that time is. If anyone is caught watching this ritual, the person conducting the ritual must eliminate that person, or else the curse will reflect back onto them. The performer usually wears a white kimono, sandals, and places 3 burning candles on top of their head. If you visit the shrine to this day, you will find many trees with holes on it, presumably from the nails of those attempting this scary ritual. At our number 9 spot, with the Awashima Shrine. There is no doubt Japan is a very beautiful place, meaning that most of the shrines I mentioned on this list are very visitable, so I had to mention Awashima Shrine to change your mind on that. This shrine contains over 20,000 dolls who are believed to be possessed from its past owners. The dolls will be left at the shrine as an offering from women to pray for fertility and for safe birth. Come on, look at this place. Tell me you would go here willingly. According to legend, Empress Zingu was journeying home from a war overseas. As she was on her way back home, a huge storm took over the seas and broke the boat partially. This caused the Empress to pray to the gods, and apparently they brought her back safely to Tomagashina. Here she would build the Awashima Shrine to thank the gods for their service. People believe that these dolls over time would develop souls, so the reason why many donate it is to get rid of the curse trapped inside of these dolls that caused many of the problems and issues within their own life. At number 8 spot, we have the Dashogun Shrine. This shrine was originally built by Emperor Kanmu in 794. It was originally built to break the evil coming from all sorts of directions, whether this be from physical enemies or spiritual beings. This became a place where people would go to pray for protection. Specifically, many would call for the god of the stars, Dashogun. Enshrined at the place are many Japanese figures fighting a beast named the Nu. A Nu is a Japanese yokai described as having the head of a monkey, the body of a raccoon dog, legs of a tiger, and a snake for a tail. Pretty terrifying, right? Because these creatures can also transform into a black cloud and fly all over the place. Back in the early years of its construction, it said that the current emperor sent out these powerful warriors to kill it and make the place peaceful at last. Except many believe the Nu is still out there near the shrine, with reports of seeing the creature in the forest surrounding the area. At our number 7 spot, with the Menenji Temple. Menenji Temple is located in Iwamizawa, Japan, and it was originally built in dedication to the Jodo sect of Buddhism. Despite its spiritual beginnings, the temple is now known for the cursed doll that lives within it. The story starts in 1918 Japan. Older brother Eikichi Suzuki bought a doll for his 2-year-old sister Okiku. The doll had a black bob cut and a traditional kimono on it. His sister loved the doll so much that she would even name it after her own name. These two would become so attached together like no other. But in the following year, Okiku became gravely ill and ended up passing away. To commemorate her family put her favorite doll on her memorial shrine. Everything seemed fine until after a few days they would begin to notice something very strange. The doll's hair seemed to be actively growing, and every time it would be cut, it would continue to keep growing. Eventually her family would move away but chose to keep the doll in the same place, thinking that Okiku would have wanted that. Now it resides in the Menenji Temple, where it's said that monks will cut the doll's hair regularly as it keeps on growing. At number 6 spot, we have the Sogenji Shrine. The Sogenji Shrine, also known as a Kappadera, is a Zen Buddhist temple in Tokyo. It got its name from a Japanese mythological entity known as the Kappa. And no, I don't mean that trashy clothing brand. I'm talking about these guys. Kappas are these human-like creatures, small in stature, with webbed hands and feet. It has a turtle shell on its back, and a beak and a saucer on their head, always seem to be filled with water. These creatures would just be known for their troublemaking. They would play games with both animals and humans, and in some cases, the Kappa would impregnate women and drown people in the rivers where they resided. Apparently, when the place was prone to flooding, the people of the area asked for the Kappa for existence, and now many claim that the Kappas are still nearby, claiming the place as their own. There are several statues of the Kappa littered around the shrine, but who knows if one of them turns out to be real. At the top of our list, we have the Zenkoji Temple. The Zenkoji Temple is a Buddhist temple located in the city of Nagano, Japan. The main temple of Zenkoshi has a dark room created for spiritual purposes and acts like a shrine in a way. This dark room follows a pitch black tunnel underneath the temple that monks had supposedly hid the quote key to paradise. In order to do this, you need to hone your 5 senses and have complete focus while trying to navigate yourself through this area. This area is supposed to represent the journey between death and rebirth. It's very simple to understand how this represents the pursuit of enlightenment, which is only possible once you let go of your physical limitations and your concerns. People think that if you find the key, they will be saved, while others believe that if you fail, you will have a series of bad luck and unfortunate mishappenings. Regardless if you succeed or not, this room is bound to have a terrifying experience experience regardless. At number 4 spot, we have Mount Osor. This is one of Japan's most sacred sites, and for good reason. It's claimed by many to be one of the entrances to hell. First, the temple lies on top of a volcanic plain, and as you roam the area, you will constantly pick up a scent of sulfur, which is already eerie because this is the smell of ghosts and demons, supposedly. But volcanic reasons also make sense. According to Buddhist monks, they say that this place resembles the descriptions of hell and also paradise, so this is why many believe this is a spirit hub. Also around the area are these little Jizo statues, which were there to guide people who were lost, especially for children to take and keep them for safety. People who have lost their children bring pebbles to the site as an offering for their kids to go easily through the afterlife. Except many of these pebbles are left broken, and many have placed the blame on evil demons in the area. There's also a festival at the shrine where blind women called Itaku bring messages from the afterlife back to the living. So best believe there are quite a few spirits here waiting to be communicated with. At number 3 spot, we have the Owa Nanari Tamaya Shrine. This shrine in Tokyo has one of the most famous ghost stories in all of Japan associated with it. The story goes that Owa was a very pure and faithful woman, married to a terrible man named Tamaya Lemon. This man killed her in order to marry a richer woman. While the accounts on how he killed her vary, this all include poisoning her with terrible consequences to her looks. Obviously, she wouldn't be keen on this whole new marriage thing, and she proceeded to ruin the marriage, making him kill his new wife and her family by making them look like her dead self, and finally killed him too. The shrine was built to represent Owa's angry spirit and it still rests south of the station in Tokyo. At number 2 spot, we're the Kaikoji Temple. This place has nothing really scary about it except the fact that it has mummified bodies on display. Okay, maybe it is a bit scary. These mummified figures are known as a Sokushin Butsu, also known as the living Buddha or Buddha mummies. These are in fact real people, and they are the bodies of priests who belong to the Shingon sect of Japanese Buddhism. All the mummies we see here are priests who made the drastic decision in self-mummification. Just something about a body that is fully intact for hundreds of years that makes it so creepy, right? The process for the mummification would actually be pretty intense. For the first 1,000 days, they would do extreme fasting and exercising. Then on the next 1,000 days, they would reduce their diets to a bare minimum. The last 1,000 days would consist of entombment. Basically, they would bury themselves alive, essentially while in a deep state of meditation, in order to reach enlightenment. At number 1 spot, we have the Taki Shrine. This shrine is consumed in moss but looks very beautiful, but the story behind it completely ruins it. This shrine was established in the Teryaku era of Japan, which was around 900 AD. Legend goes that a man was hunting for yokai and fighting against sorcery in the region. When he was roaming the area, it would slowly get consumed by a dark black cloud. Unable to move further, the man prayed to the gods and fired an arrow up into the clouds. When the arrow came back down, the cloud drifted away, and the spot where the arrow hit is a supposed location of the Taki Shrine. Every now and then, the mountain will be filled with fog and mist, which only adds to the amazing atmosphere of the nature in the area, but also has a little bit of creepiness in it. And it's also a time when most of the region's spirits seem to be resting. Many believe that many yokai are resting by the shrine, so it's best to visit this area when there's still light outside, because many people have gone missing when night hits. At our number 10 spot, we have the Candy Lady. In the early 1900s, children in the rural town of Terrell, Texas started to go missing. Some of the residents blamed it on the Candy Lady. The story says that she would go around leaving candy on children's home windows just before bedtime. As the parents began to fall asleep, it'll encourage children to grab the candy, but as they try to grab it, the lady grabs them and feasts on their sugar-laden blood until there isn't any left. A farmer allegedly found rotten teeth on his farm and later found the body of a boy with his pockets stuffed with candy. Many people believe that Candy Lady is in fact real and went by the name of Clara Crane. Clara Crane was accused of poisoning her husband back in 1895 with poison-laced caramel candies, but that's not all. 5 years before the incident, Crane's 5-year-old daughter passed away from unknown causes, which many believe that she poisoned her daughter as well. At a number 9 spot, we have La Llorona. This legend originates from El Paso, Texas. Almost all Latin cultures know the story of La Llorona, and the people of El Paso are no exception to that. La Llorona directly translates to the weeping woman, which perfectly describes the behavior of this malevolent spirit. She is said to haunt the riverbanks of the Rio Grande, where she is searching for her 2 children whom she had already drowned in that very river. Now there are many iterations of the story, but I'll just mention the most popular one. The legend goes that a lady found her boyfriend with another woman. After a heated argument between the two, the woman was heartbroken and wanted to get revenge, so she took the children and proceeded to drown them in the Rio Grande River in Texas. It's also said that when she was done throwing her children into the river, she went back to her lover's home with a bloody wedding gown, showing her she would do whatever it took to be with him. It's said to be the reason why many children disappear in that very area, and she supposedly takes other children to fill the void she lost. So if you're in the area, beware of a woman weeping in a wedding gown who is sitting by the Rio Grande. At a number 8 spot, El Cucuy. This creature is known as South Texas' official boogeyman. There are many versions of El Cucuy since it already originates in Mexico as well. It's said that this monster kidnaps children who misbehave and takes them back to the mountain where he lives to devour them. He appears as a hairless creature with an enormous head that dwarfs his spider-like body. He also has these large red glowing eyes, red ears to hear everything, and razor sharp fangs and claws to accompany that. The origin of El Cucuy goes that a man was suffering with tuberculosis. Desperate to cure himself, he fetched an African witch doctor. The doctor told him to drink a child's blood, but as he did, he started to turn into the monster described. Ever since, he has a never-ending thirst for children's blood. At our number 7, we have the Screaming Bridge. In North Arlington, Texas, 50 years ago, there was a group of teenage girls driving home from a football game. The bridge was designed to only fit one car at a time, and I know, what a dumb bridge, but this was in the past and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. The girls weren't paying attention and went full speed over the bridge until a car with no headlights struck them head on, with all of the girls passing away. Some say when they go near the bridge, they can hear the distant screams sounding like the girls before they passed away. As well, if you go over the bridge and look down at the water below, you can see the tombstones of all the girls with their names and birthdays written on it. At number 6 spot, we have the Goatman's Bridge. Why are there so many haunted bridges? Like, I don't get it. But in Denton County, Texas, lies the Goatman's Bridge, which was built in 1884. This bridge is supposedly haunted by the ghost of the Goatman. The story goes that a black goat farmer named Oscar Washburn was renowned for quality meat, milk, and cheeses, and then he moved with his family just north of the bridge. Except when he arrived in this area, he was instantly the target of racial hate crime. The racist townfolk came together and burned down the farm with the family inside. They then threw Oscar's body over that very bridge. Now he appears as a half goat, half man humanoid that reeks of decaying flesh. If you knock on the bridge 3 times, it said that you can summon the Goatman, but now others use this area for rituals and other supernatural activities. Right in the hump of our list, we have the Lady of White Rock Lake. The lake is located in Dallas, Texas, and many visitors claim that they spot a drenched young woman who appears crawling out of the water or asking to fetch a ride. When many people offer her this ride, she disappears out of thin air and leaves a bloody, wet seat mark and a terrified driver. Even though many of the drivers were scared to their core, some decide to go to the address given to them by the girl. When they arrive at the door, they're all met by the same man who tells them that his daughter had gone sailing and never came back. Many people believe the story is inspired by the 1953 book Neiman Marcus, Texas, the story of the Proud Dallas Store, and according to the book, Malloy and his wife are driving home late one night in East Dallas when a young, beautiful blonde girl ghost appears on the road. Her elegant dresses is naturally wet and she seems to be in trouble. She gives them an address on Gaston Avenue and asks them to be taken home, but as they drive, she disappears, leaving only a mark. At our number 4 spot, we have the Lake Worth Monster. You just learned about the Goatman, right? Well, this is basically the Goatman, but of the lake. This monster terrorized the people of the town for years, with many describing the creature as being 7 feet tall, around 300 pounds, long-necked, flop-eared, pot-bellied, covered in white scales and hair. I swear I just described Shaquille O'Neal. The monster was supposedly captured on camera, but you guys be the judge of that one. It looks like a 2-year-old drew on a camera lens on a potato with a crayon and then took this photo. But who knows, it might be real. This beast was inspired by Sally Ann Clark's book, The Lake Worth Monster of Greer Lake, Fort Worth, Texas. In the book, the monster jumped on the hood of someone's car and shook up the car so badly that they got caught in a bad accident. The people described it being a 7 feet tall being covered in scales and fur and resembled a half goat and half man. Pretty scary if you ask me. All the way at our number 3 spot, we have the Donkey Lady. The Donkey Lady of San Antonio, Texas dates all the way back in the late 1800s. The Donkey Lady was once a beautiful woman with children and a husband, but one day in a rage, the husband burned down the house with the children and wife still inside. The children passed away, but however, the wife managed to survive, but suffered greatly from this. Her toes and fingers would be fused together in a hoove-like way, and her face was melted and sagging, inspiring the Donkey Lady name. There's a bridge in South San Antonio named the Old Applewhite Bridge or the Donkey Lady Bridge. This is the bridge she went to crown after this horrible tragedy. Now it's said if you go to the bridge after midnight and call out the Donkey Lady, she will appear just before you. Some have claimed she had run at people who call out her name, or sometimes just stalks in the forest line waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. At number 2 spot, we have the girl who danced with the devil. The story takes place in the 1970s in San Antonio, Texas, with a young Mexican girl named Rosa. One day the girl wanted to attend a dance at a nearby nightclub named the El Cabroncito. However, the parents were very strict and didn't want her anywhere near the nightclub. Despite their orders, she snuck out of her house and traveled all the way to the nightclub where she could finally have her dance. At the club, Rosa was approached by this very tall, charming, and well-dressed man who asked her permission to dance. When they began dancing, Rosa was terrified when she discovered he had goat hooves instead of feet. When she screamed in terror, people in the club started to chase him out, but as he got close, he vanished out of thin air, leaving a trail of smoke and the smell of sulfur. Double activity if that wasn't enough. It's said that the area surrounding the nightclub still smells of sulfur to this day. At a number 1 spot with El Muerto. El Muerto, otherwise known as the Headless Horseman of Texas, is a Texas legend that dates all the way back in the mid-1800s. The story goes that two rangers, Creed Taylor and William Bigfoot Wallace, were hunting a criminal known as Vidal along the Mexican border. Vidal had been wreaking havoc all across the state of Texas, so when the ranger caught them, they wanted to set an example. So they did just that and cut his head clean off. They then tied his head to the saddle and sent his horse with the headless body running off into the night. Now the horse continued to explore the region with its headless rider. The tale of El Muerto began to grow after it was reported that both had been seen numerous times and that gunshots had no impact on either of them. Spotting El Muerto was thought to foreshadow bad luck because everyone who claimed to have seen him was struck with a series of bad luck and poor health following it.
Starting off this countdown at number 10, the Singapore Stone. Did you know that Singapore has its very own Hercules? Known as Badang, a poor fisherman lived his humble life by the Singapore River. When he realized a water djinn had been stealing his fishes, he set a trap to catch the spirit red-handed. He then confronted the captured spirit, who promised to grant his wish in return for its release. Badang proceeded to wish for superhuman strength and was soon appointed court warrior by the Sultan of Singapore. Warriors from far and wide started swarming in to challenge the strong man, including India's Wadi Vijaya. The two dueled in a series of contests, and the last one saw them lifting a massive rock and throwing it towards the Singapore River. The rock was discovered years later at the spot where it was said to have landed, and not just that, there was an inscription on it, probably to commemorate Badang's achievement. However, only a fragment of the rock survives today, and as it's been said, the Brits blasted it to pieces in 1843. While it's housed in the temporary closed National Museum of Singapore, you can still see it online.
Barely a meter wide, the Singapore Stone is a fragment of a large sandstone slab that once stood at the mouth of the Singapore River. Blown up in 1843 to widen the passageway of the river mouth, this fragment is believed to be over 1,000 years old.
Number 9, Red Hill. Red Hill has a bloody tale behind its name. As strange as it sounds, it all started with a swordfish infestation, where the sea creatures attacked unsuspected villagers and fishermen by the shore. An idea came out of using banana tree trunks as a barricade to trap the swordfishes. He brought this up to the Sultan, who granted permission to proceed. The brilliant plan worked, earning him the respect and admiration of the villagers, but not the Sultan, who soon became envious of the attention. Out of jealousy, he ordered his men to rid the boy, even taking his life by any means necessary, and so they did. The poor boy's blood flowed down the hill where he lived, staining it blood red, and so that's how it's said it's got its name. Number 8, Kusu Island. An island with an interesting backstory is Kusu Island, also known as a sacred site. The island is home to a Chinese temple and 3 Malay shrines, but do you know where it gets its name from? Kusu means turtle in Hokkien, and legend has it that a giant turtle transformed into the island to save stranded sailors and fishermen, victims of the stormy weather. The sailors and fishermen returned the following year and the year after with offerings to show their gratitude. From then on, people head down on the 9th month of the lunar calendar to pay their respects. Number 7, Radin Ma. Radin Ma is the name of the area between Teluk Bangla, Bukit Permi, and Jalan Bukit Merah. Sorry if I mispronounced any of that. As well as a couple of known landmarks around the city. It's also the name of a Javanese princess, Radin Ma Ayu. Her father was a warrior prince, her mother was a commoner, and their marriage was condemned by the Sultan. One day, while the warrior prince was away on an expedition, the Sultan ordered his men to burn their house down, killing his wife. Radin, however, was saved by a loyal servant. Upon his return, the devastated warrior prince left the Javanese kingdom for Temasek with his baby daughter. Soon after their arrival, the Sultan of Temasek arranged for the warrior prince to marry his daughter, similar to the tale of Cinderella. Radin's new stepmother wasn't a big fan of hers. The plot thickens when the adult Radin was to marry her stepmother's nephew, whom she refused. Not liking her decision, he attacked her main man in life, her father. In an attempt to save him, Radin was hurt in the process, receiving a stab in the heart. It's said that her body is laid to rest at the foot of Mount Faber, where there's a shrine in respect of her loyalty. Number 6, Island of Death. Plamati, or Island of Death, was a former name of Sentosa. While no one knows exactly just how the island got its morbid name, it's been said that the island was once a place of piracy and bloodshed. Other reasons behind its name include the location of the island, which was adjacent to Palu Brani, which was the burial ground for many ancient Malay warriors. Then there's a tale about a deadly outbreak called the Blakang Mati fever in the late 1840s, which almost wiped out the original Bugis settlers on the island. In 1972, Palu Mati was renamed as Sentosa, or Peace and Tranquility, leaving its past behind. Today, it's a beach resort known as the State of Fun. Halfway number 5 is Singapura. Sang Nila Utama, or Sri Tribhuwana, was once the ruler of the Shivajaya Empire at Sumatra. According to legends, he went on an expedition in the late 13th century and discovered an island with a white sandy shore. After learning that the place was called Temasek, Sang decided to cross the waters to reach this newly discovered land. However, a storm appeared out of nowhere and nearly swallowed the boat. In a desperate attempt, Sang threw his crown into the turbulent waters. The weather and the sea immediately became calm, and the crew reached Teluk Blangah safely. As they landed, a strange beast was spotted from afar. Upon hearing that it was a lion, Sang was overjoyed and decided to name the island Sigapura, or Lion City. The discovery was said to have happened in and around AD 1297, and Sang went on to rule for 48 years before his passing. His palace and burial ground was located on top of Bukit Larangang, or Forbidden Hill. Number 4, Sisters Islands. Lying south of Sentosa, Sisters Islands refer to Pulau Sabar Darta and Pulau Sabar Lut. Many years ago, there was a pair of sisters, Mina and Lena, living by the southern coast of Singapore. Being very attached to each other, the sisters vowed to marry 2 brothers so that they could live together always. However, one night, Lena ran into a group of pirates by the sea. Stunned by her beauty, the pirate chief was determined to marry Lena. When the dawn broke, the pirates came and abducted Lena to their ships. Weeping over the loss of her dear sister, Mina came swimming after the boats. The stormy waters were merciless, and she was doomed eventually. In a desperate attempt, Lena broke free and dived into the sea. The next day, a pair of islands appeared where the sisters had drowned. They were named Sisters Islands by the villagers in memory of the 2 girls.
And legend has it that the next day, after the storm had subsided, Sisters Islands had appeared in the position where the 2 sisters were last seen.
Number 3, Underwater City. Legend has it that Sang Nila Utama was the child between an adventurer king and a princess of an underwater kingdom, like we talked about before. Supposedly, Sang's father Raja had a glass case created for him to descend into the sea because he was curious about what lies beneath the calm waters. He sank into a country called Dika and was greeted by a race of men, and was later taken to meet the ruler of this underwater wonderland, and that's exactly how he met Sang's mum, Princess Mathabu Labari. This world under the sea, however, is scarcely ever mentioned in history books. Number 2, the Merlion. One night, the villagers living by the southern coast of Tesamek were awakened by the howling winds and crashing waves. The dark clouds blocked out the lights of the moon and the stars, turning the world in complete darkness. It was as though the island of Tesamek would be sunk by the raging sea. The terrified villagers got down on their knees and prayed. During this moment, a bright light was observed emerging from the southern waters. A massive creature, half lion, half fish, roared in anger. The battle between the fierce mythical animal and nature was intense, as the sky was filled with flashing lightning. The villagers had never witnessed such terrifying phenomenons before. After some time, the winds began to die down. The waves subsided and the sky started to clear. The gigantic sea beast had won the battle against nature. As it claimed its victory, it stood proudly on Sentosa. By morning, the Merlion had retreated into its waters, leaving behind a bright, colorful trail. Number 1, Ghostly Passengers. This story originates with taxi drivers, specifically ones who have had the eerie experience of picking up late-night passengers who ask to be dropped off at a cemetery. Usually, the protagonist in the story is a beautiful young woman waiting on a remote road for a taxi. Once she's in the taxi, she doesn't speak again and wordlessly hands the driver money when she arrives at her destination. In the morning, when the driver looks at the money, it's hell notes. Money burnt as an offering have replaced the Singaporean bills. Starting off this countdown at number 10, La Plaza Mansion. La Plaza Mansion has made an appearance on many TV shows about ghosts and is known to be one of the most haunted places in the United States. The previous owner started freaking out when bad things started happening in the house. He tried to confront the evil spirit, but it was rumored that he was choked until he almost passed away. He was fortunate to have escaped, and the house currently remains vacant with no one inside. Well, no one living there, I guess. It's believed the mob in Las Vegas owned this house. Upon investigation, they discovered a room covered with dry blood. It's speculated that the mob used this room to perform executions. While no one has dared to live in the house after that one man, no one has also ever dared to tear it down out of fear. Now at number 9, the Sphinx. A geographic phenomenon serves as the source for an urban legend that continues to intrigue and mystify people to this day. If you traveled through Nevada, you've probably noticed how Nevada's rivers empty into small lakes that don't have any visible outlets. These lakes are called sinks, referring to the way that the water simply sinks away. An urban legend says that the sinking water is to God, who, after creating the Mississippi and Missouri rivers, decided to make a third river in Nevada that was bigger than the others. God spent time creating 8 smaller rivers that would forge together to make one big river, but he ran out of time and decided to finish the work later. God tucked in the ends of the rivers overnight to keep them safe, but when the next day came, he forgot about them, and the 8 rivers were left alone, leading nowhere and eventually emptying into the sinks. Now coming in at number 8, bodies in the Hoover Dam. Sometimes urban legends become so popular that people start believing it's a fact. And here's just one example. The Hoover Dam was built in the 1930s. During its construction, 96 workers unfortunately lost their lives, but popular belief says the number could be much higher. More disturbing than that is that it's said that 7 bodies were allegedly never removed from the dam because they fell through gaps and were buried in the concrete. Coming in at number 7, corpse under the bed. I'm sure you guys have all heard about this one before, but let's talk about it again. This urban legend is one that has done the rounds across the United States. The general story is that guests will stay at a cheap hotel for the night. They will enjoy a great night's sleep before waking up in the morning to smell something very pungent and gross. Upon investigating the foul smell, the guests will discover the decomposing corpse of a victim rotting right under where they laid their head that previous night. It's alleged that this myth started in Las Vegas after gangsters would leave their murder victims under the bed in hotels. Coming in at number 6, Del H. Robinson Middle School. Kids can have a wild imagination when it comes to urban legends and myths. However, this one seems to have many witnesses to be dismissed without a thought. The students at Del H. Robinson Middle School have reported seeing a janitor walking the halls with bloody hands. Some new arrivals to the school have also claimed to see a man in their dreams after enrolling in the school. Some say that he followed them home and then disappeared. The strange twist to this Las Vegas urban legend is that all witnesses said their sightings ended when they started going to church. Halfway at number 5, the Megabucks curse. In March 2000, Cynthia J. Brennan won the life-changing Megabucks jackpot at the Desert Inn. It was a total of $34.9 million. However, tragically, Cynthia was then involved in a horrific car accident just days after the winning. The accident left her quadriplegic and ignited rumors that the Megabucks prize was cursed. The flames of this legend were fanned even more in 2003, when it claimed that an anonymous winner of the $39.7 million Megabucks jackpot at the Excalibur Hotel unfortunately passed away after a drug overdose. Even though no official confirmation has come from winners losing their lives after winning the Megabucks jackpot, many still believe in the Megabucks curse. Previous winners have allegedly passed away in plane crashes, passed in Los Angeles gang fights, and suffered heart attacks. Now at number 4, ghost at Goldfield Hotel. There are several urban legends associated with Goldfield Hotel. The most famous urban legend is the story of Elizabeth. As legend has it, Elizabeth, who was an intimate street worker, and George Wingfield, who was a past owner, had gotten her pregnant. Because George was afraid of the publicity destroying his reputation, he chained Elizabeth to the radiator in room number 109. Supposedly, after Elizabeth gave birth, Wingfield threw the baby down an abandoned mine shaft in the basement of the hotel, and either allowed Elizabeth to pass away on her own or had someone take her life. Now at number 3, Black Market. This classic urban legend ticks all the boxes on the list for horrifying. This urban legend goes like this. One night out, some tourists met some locals in a bar and eventually have their drinks spiked, and they then wake up in a nightmare situation. If you've watched Hostel, then you'll have a rough idea of how this one goes. In 1991, one specific rumor started doing the rounds that an individual was spiking the drinks of unsuspecting drinkers on nights out in Las Vegas and stealing their kidneys to sell them for money. Victims would be sharing drinks with a charismatic stranger one minute, and the next minute they would be waking up in a hotel bathtub covered with ice and stitches on their lower back. The predator would leave a simple note stating call 911 or you'll die. Now coming in at number 2, the ghosts of the MGM Grand Fire. On the 21st of November 1980, the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino was the scene for one of the most devastating tragedies in the history of the city. A blazing fire ripped through the resort, claiming the lives of 85 people. At the time of the fire, hotels in Las Vegas were not required to have sprinkler systems installed, so this hotel didn't have one. It was said that faulty wiring is what caused the fire, and it could not be stopped in time to save the lives of those that were eventually lost. Bally's Las Vegas now stands on the site of the old hotel, and it is rumored that the ghosts of those that passed on that fateful night roam the halls of the new hotel, haunting people because no one was able to save them.
Officials later estimated the fire traveled across the casino, the length of a football field, in less than 20 seconds. Had it been later in the day, the area likely would have been jammed with gamblers. At this point, smoke rising from the MGM could be seen for miles around, and firefighters were rushing toward the MGM from all over the Las Vegas area.
Now coming in at number 1, Area 51. When you hear about urban legends associated with Las Vegas, Area 51 is usually at the top of the list. Officially called the Nevada Test and Training Range, this high-security open training range for the US Air Force in the Nevada desert has been the subject of controversy and conversation over the years. One widely held conspiracy involves Area 51 and UFOs. Some stories connected with the site suggest that the remains from a flying saucer that supposedly crashed near Roswell, New Mexico in 1947 was then transported to Area 51 for further examination. Granted, the Air Force began to investigate claims of UFO sightings in 1952, an effort that later became known as Project Blue Book. When Project Blue Book ended in 1996, the Air Force had investigated more than 12,000 UFO claims. Dr. Jeffrey T. Richardson, a former senior fellow at the George Washington University National Security Archive, did a lot of research into Area 51 during his lifetime. He reported that the CIA's Lockheed U-2 plane reconnaissance program, spy planes used to gather intelligence, was connected with Area 51. Jeffrey filed a Freedom of Information Act in 2005 to seek information about this program. In 2013, Richardson told the New York Times that after examining declassified CIA documents about activity in Area 51, quote, "The only overlap is the discussion of the U-2 flights and UFO sightings. The fact that you had these high-flying aircrafts in the air being the cause of some of the sightings." So what do you think really goes on at Area 51? Starting off this countdown at number 10, Spooner Road. Spooner Road is haunted by disturbances, weird unexplained sounds, and sightings in the flats, darting shadows, and the list goes on. The story behind it is that the HDB blocks at Spooner Road are some of the oldest in Singapore. The few blocks were built in the mid-1970s and were formerly used as the quarters to house personnel of the staff and families who worked at the nearby Tanjong Pagar railway station. The flats were left empty for years when operations closed at the railway station, but are currently used as rental apartments for low-income residents. There have been many stories from residents and explorers about the eerie things they experienced at Spooner Road. Here's even a video of someone who lives there sharing their creepy experience.
The first time I saw was right here when I was sitting down watching a game. And it was standing right here behind me. So when I turned and I looked at it, I thought I would have died that day or that night. It was just this black, tall figure right about here. The eyes was red, and I remember looking back in front and turning back again. It was not there.
That kind of sounds like he's describing a demon. Yeah, I personally would not want to come across this place while visiting Singapore. Number 9, Nee Soon Rubber Estate. This estate is said to be haunted by Pontianics. Pontianics are said to be women who have passed away during childbirth, and are also known as vampiric ghosts. At this estate, people say they wait on residents' balconies or doorsteps, calling out to those fishing at the canal or staring at people crossing through Sembawang Park. The story behind it is that Sembawang is where the Nee Soon Rubber Estate used to sit. That's a whole field of rubber trees, which are known to be favored residents of these restless female vampire ghosts. They really love those trees. Their spirits apparently still remain even though the estate has since been cleared to make way for flats and industrial buildings. In order to come across this place, your best bet is to take a night walk in Sembawang Park. But that's if you dare to even look for this place. Now at number 8, Kubur Kasim Cemetery. Leave aside the typical haunted houses in Singapore because you need to take a look at this chilling cemetery. It was founded on Sing Lap Road back in the 1920s and has tombs dedicated to supernatural-esque humans, as per Malay legends and folktales. They are reportedly perceived as supernatural beings that preferred being buried at this location for a specific reason, i.e. their religious guide was also buried at this location. People believe that the cemetery is home to, guess what, a Pontianak. Remember that thing we talked about in the last point? I guess these are just all over Singapore. Several sightings have been reported while those alone in the compound of a mosque within the premises have talked of knocking sounds from the burial zone. Coming in at number 7, the Yellow Tower at East Coast Park. East Coast Park is one of the most frequently visited places in Singapore, but every single time you scroll, cycle, or jog past this yellow tower in the park, have you ever wondered if there's a story behind it? Well, there is, and it's quite a tragic one. Years back, a couple was strolling around this area at night. It was specifically at this Amber Beacon Tower that the poor lady was horribly, intimately assaulted by a group of thugs and subsequently stabbed till she passed away, while her boyfriend was knocked unconscious and the criminals were unfortunately never apprehended. From then on, there have been claims and sightings of a female figure near this tower, while others allegedly heard screams of help, and the Yellow Tower has been said to be haunted since. Number 6, Old Changji Hospital. The Old Changji Hospital is haunted by the restless souls of those who were tortured till they passed away or executed by the Japanese during World War II. as well as the security guard who used to work there. The story behind it is that it was used by the Japanese military police to hold more than 50,000 Allied prisoners of war and as a torture chamber during the Japanese occupation. It was then vacated in 1997. 4 decades after it was first built. The abandoned building still stands and occasional ghost tours are held there, which has added to its reputation of being one of the spookiest places in Singapore. But if you really want to go here, be careful to not get caught for trespassing. However, you can still observe from afar or from a hotel which used to be a part of the hospital. Personally though, I'd rather stay far, far away from that hotel and the hospital. Halfway at number 5, Old Tampines Road. Old Tampines Road is said to be haunted by, drumroll please, Pontianacs, which yes, makes it the 3rd one on this list. Honestly, Singapore, like, are you guys cursed or something, having like Pontianacs like everywhere? The vengeful spirits of women who have passed during their pregnancy or childbirth that continue to linger in the area. While there is no official recorded history, as with most ghost stories, many riders and cyclists have said to feel extra weight when passing through the long and quiet stretch at night. On top of that, there is always a sweet floral scent lingering in the air during these incidences, which is said to be associated with these angry ghosts. The road has been upgraded and a lot of the spooky trees have been cut down, but you can cruise through at 3 AM if you really want to risk that. Number 4, the Devil's Bend at Old Upper Thompson Road. The creepy road is said to be haunted by the spirits of drivers who unfortunately passed away while trying to navigate this tricky road bend. The story behind it is that part of the race route of the original Singapore Grand Prix, which was held from 1961 to 1974, until it was discontinued due to its high fatality rate. The poorly lit stretch is still a favorite haunt for illegal street racers and thrill seekers. The most recent accident claimed the lives of 2 passengers when the car they were traveling in plunged into a ditch in 2008. Now it's not really hard to get here because it's just a road, so you're more than welcome to drive here, but be alert and be careful. Or just don't go at all, because what if it is actually haunted and it's the ghosts who push your car off the road? Number 3, National Museum of Singapore. Built in the year 1882 and a major landmark on its own, the National Museum of Singapore is reportedly haunted by Carl Alexander Gibson Hill, an ex-director who took his life here several years earlier. The museum staff members and visitors have both come across the former director's spirit on the premises as per reports. There is a fabulously designed spiral Victorian staircase at the corner of the main room, with 2 massive windows beside it. This is a famous place for such sightings and has been sealed off from general visitors. Many people, however, have reported seeing a figure resembling a priest, while some say that something invisible tripped them and prevented them from accessing the staircase. Number 2, Matilda House. There were rumors that there was a lady with long hair in these trees in the surrounding area and that some workers actually passed away while working at Matilda House. However, some people say they don't know exactly if it's haunted or not, and if it is, by who. Some things are just always supposed to remain a mystery, I guess. The story behind it is that Matilda House was built in 1902 by Irish lawyer Alexander Cashin for his wife, and was named after his mother. The house stayed in the Cashin family for a while until it was left abandoned before the government got their hands on it. Legend has it that the house refused to be demolished, with stories saying unexplained forces would always get in the way of tearing down the house, or any major renovations. In the end, Matilda House was incorporated as the clubhouse of a private condominium in Punjol. Now coming in at number 1, Haw Par Villa. Even without the ghost stories, Haw Par Villa with its graphic presentation of the 10 courts of hell is quite freaky. It's currently a tourist hotspot that depicts various aspects of Chinese mythology. There have been rumors that Haw Par Villa is where one of the gates of hell is. If that isn't scary enough, other people have said that the statues are actually deceased humans covered with wax. Whether you believe those stories or not, security guards have been heard to have spoken about how the place comes alive at night, and have also mentioned hearing screams coming from the 10 courts of hell area. The fact that not many people visit this attraction gives it a very eerie and creepy vibe in the evening. Talk about Night of the Museum, am I right?
At number 10 spot, we have the Haunted Igloo Hotel. Located in Cantwell, Alaska, is one of the most unique hotels you'll ever see. However, can we call it a hotel if it's never officially been opened up to people? I guess not. Well, sometime in the 1970s, a man named Leon Smith began the construction of this building. His original plan was to make it a never-before-seen hotel, but over the years, it never managed to open due to various code violations. For example, they had undersized windows, which didn't even meet the requirement of the state, and in the end, the building was too big to demolish, so it just stood there for the next 4 decades. Now, apart from this hotel looking pretty eerie, what makes it so scary? Well, because this is an area notoriously notorious for grizzly bear attacks, and many have been reported in the area surrounding the hotel. But what makes many stray far, far away is that some have said they saw a woman in white who haunts the ruins. She can be seen looking out of the windows and sometimes by the entrance. At our number 9 spot, we have the baggage towers. Before you arrive in Whittier, Alaska, you must go through a long, narrow tunnel, and when you get out, the place already has this creepy atmosphere. However, as you drive down this town, one building may stand out to you, and that's the baggage towers. At one point, this building held the entire population of the city, all while being used for other public facilities such as stores and even churches. They eventually gave it the nickname, the town under one roof, and it just makes sense. With everyone in the town being under the same roof, it was bound to happen that some restless spirits stayed in the building as well. And at one point, residents of the building reported a strange, dark, shadowy figure walking and even crawling around the hallways late at night. In the rooms, they would hear strange voices coming from dark places telling them just to come closer. And one notorious spirit that most residents know is the man that could be heard whistling across the building. Now locals claim that it's even worse when snowfall hits because it just forces them to stay trapped inside of this supposed haunted building. At number 8 spot, we have Badarka Road. Many say this road exists while others claim it was completely made up, but what could be true is the terrifying stories attached to this road. Apparently located in Chudjik is a road known to be haunted by a man and his young daughter. This is all because they lost their lives on this road and have never been put to rest. Story goes that a man and his 5-year-old daughter decided to drive down this stretch of road in order to gather firewood for their cabin that was nearby. When they stopped, the father grabbed his axe and proceeded to chop down a tree. When he was on to his next tree, he wanted a small break, so he kept his axe lodged into the tree. However, when he turned his back, his daughter wanted to impress him and she took out the axe, which caused the entire tree to fall on top of her, killing her instantly. The father was so distraught and just sat there with her lifeless body until he passed away from hypothermia. Now if you happen to find this road and drive down it around 3 AM, you may catch the father holding his bloody daughter asking for a ride. At number 7 spot, we have Chased by a UFO. On November 17th, 1986, Japan Airlines cargo flight 1628 was making a trip from Paris all the way to Narita, which is really close by to Tokyo, Japan. It was a pretty normal flight until they made it over eastern Alaska. This is when the crew began to spot 2 unidentified flying objects close by to their left side. They described the aircrafts having 2 rectangular arrays, which is probably their thrusters. And when these aircrafts got too close, the pilots of the Japan flight noted that they could feel the heat on their face. One of the aircrafts appeared to be twice the size of the cargo flight, and they said it kind of looked like a mothership of some sort. The pilots tried to do evasive maneuvers in order to avoid these UFOs, but they still continued their pursuit for little under an hour. Once the 2 aircrafts left the plane alone, a third one came out of nowhere and began to trail them. The pilots decided to contact air traffic control to identify the aircraft, but nothing could be distinguished. After the end of the 3-month investigation, they concluded that there wasn't enough material for proof, although they'd accepted the descriptions that the crew had left them. So this still remains unsolved, but who knows what the crew actually saw. At our number 6 spot, we have Scary Mary. One of the most famous legends told to many Alaskans is the story of Scary Mary. The story begins in the height of the Klondike Gold Rush, which occurred between 1896 to 1899. One day, a young beautiful woman named Mary came to the Golden North Hotel in Skagway with her fiance. They loved each other, and by the first day in the hotel, they had already made plans to marry one another. So the fiance decided to go off and get a fortune in the gold fields. However, as time went by, the man never ended up returning. Throughout this whole time, Mary was patiently waiting for his arrival back at the hotel. But at one point, she decided to lock herself in the room, knowing her fiance was probably never going to return. After another week, the hotel keepers decided to break down her door, only to find her deceased body while wearing a wedding dress that was meant for her wedding day. Now visitors tell us that she hasn't ever checked out at the hotel. People walking outside claim to see a pale figure wearing a wedding dress looking outside of the windows, while others claim to see her on the ceilings looking down at them when they're sleeping. In the hump of our list, we have the Eldred Rock Lighthouse. Right off of Alaska's coastline is a small island notorious for the disasters that happened around it. This is the Eldred Rock Lighthouse in Haines Area, Alaska. The lighthouse stood strong for over 100 years, but it has been haunted ever since its construction. During the 1896 gold rush, many steamboats were bringing gold miners across the body of water that surrounds the lighthouse, and unfortunately, many of these ships didn't survive the journey. The most famous wreck was during February 1898, when the steamship named the Clara Nevada hit the rock with as many as 75 lives being lost. Ever since that disaster, the island has been haunted by the souls of the Clara Nevada. All the lighthouse keepers report the feeling of being watched when they go out on a nighttime walk, and some have even claimed to see shadowy figures peeking out of the water near the coastlines. At number 4 spot, we have University of Alaska poltergeist. The University of Alaska's Wendy William Auditorium seems to be a notorious place on campus for having a few of their own poltergeists. One of these being John Wendell Wendy Williamson himself. He was a former music professor who used to teach at the school, and students and staff members nowadays claim his spirit still lives in the room, since a lot of overnight staff will catch music being played in the auditorium only to find out that no one is in the whole hall. Psychics and other paranormal investigators have gone to the auditorium and said there are 5 other entities inside. These include a shadowy man seen in the backstage, an aggressive man who picks on brunettes, a teenage guy who is very welcoming, and a white lady who used to be a former student, and alongside a little girl that can be heard giggling during the lectures. Just imagine, you pay thousands of dollars to go to school only to be haunted by a family of ghosts. At number 3 spot, with the Qualupalik. The legend of the Qualupalik comes from the Inuit people and their icy Arctic waters. They're actually somewhat considered mermaids, but unlike any other regular mermaid, there is nothing attractive about this creature. These creatures are often depicted as having fins that jut out of their heads, backs and arms, and their webbed feet and hands are topped with long sharp claws. All of this is enough to strike terrors into the hearts of the children that the Qualupalik preys upon. Only these children will catch a glimpse of their face, which resembles a woman's face that has turned green and bloated from rotting and being under the sea for a long time. Those who have sighted this creature report that they can only be seen for an instant before they are completely gone, but the children victims of this creature would not be so lucky. Their ways of killing involve leaping out of the water, sinking their sharp claws into your flesh, and dragging you into the water to drown you. At number 2 spot, we have the Alaskan Triangle. We all know about Bermuda's Devil Triangle that consumes ships and planes alike, but Alaska has their very own as well. The triangle connects from Alaska's largest city of Anchorage to Juneau in the southeast and Barrow in the north. Similar to Bermuda's Triangle, over the past 50 years, over 20,000 people and several planes have gone missing in this area. The mystery of the disappearance is inconclusive, but many of the surrounding indigenous tribes claim that restless demons and trickster spirits lure people to an icy death. Some say there's even a shape-shifting demon called the Kushtaka that inhabits the forests of the Alaskan Triangle. He is described to approach those who are lost or weak, and once your trust grows with them, they will drag you deeper and deeper into the wilderness and tear you limb for limb, preventing your soul from ever reincarnating. In other words, there's not much to do here other than being lost and potentially encountering this bloodthirsty creature. All the way at a number 1 spot with the Iliamna Lake Monster. Lake Iliamna is located in a very remote region of southwest Alaska, and when I say remote, I mean it, because in order to get to this lake, you must either go by boat or one of those float planes. It also happens to be the largest lake in Alaska and the 2nd largest in the entire US, so best believe this large body of water has more than a few creatures lurking its depths. Native stories speak about a large aquatic creature that has been the reason for many deaths around the area. Those who have seen the beast have said it ranges from 10 to 30 feet in length with a square-like head. It's so powerful, it's said that it attacks small boats off a blunt force alone, meaning it'll ram its head onto the boat until it completely destroys it. The natives call the creature a Gonagadet, which is depicted as a fish god, or some consider the monster to be a Jig-ik-nak, which are these fish-like monsters that travel in groups to attack canoes and even kill warriors.
Starting off this countdown at number 10, Mahandipur Balaji Temple. This is perhaps the only temple in the country where live exorcisms are performed on people to free their body of the spirit controlling their actions. The spooky ambiance of this temple in Rajasthan makes it one creepy place of worship to visit and is not for the faint-hearted. The temple is dedicated to Hanuman, and he is believed to be a protector who can ward off evil spirits. A visit here will surely spook you out from everything that goes on inside it. You will find people who are believed to be possessed chained in a chamber. Some are being beaten up by a pundit to free the evil spirit, or there are even people who can pour boiling water on themselves without feeling a thing. There are certain rules visitors need to follow when they come here. They cannot touch anyone and have to offer black balls into the fire. They also cannot take back any gifts or look back once they leave the premises. Here's also a video of a supposed exorcism taking place at the temple. But I want to let you know first that I personally found it disturbing, so be warned.
जय माता दी बोलो जयकारे सबकी बारे न्यारे जय माता दी जय माता दी जय माता दी जय माता दी
Now at number 9, Hazrat Syed Ali Miradatar Dargah. This temple is said to be where people chain themselves to the walls here to get rid of evil spirits. Located in a fort-like structure in Unava village, this Dargah has been visited by women who are mentally affected or possessed according to some people for ages. People come here to drive evil spirits away, and there's consequently a lot of strange things that go on at the place. Local people warn others to not spend much time in that specific room where affected people are being helped by a religious master to remove evil spirits from the body, as the furious spirit might try to possess you while leaving that body. People from all religions, caste, and creed are welcome, however I don't know if you want to visit. Now at number 8, Shri Kestra Gondapur Dattatreya Temple. This temple is in the Gulbarga district of Karnataka state in India. It is around 45 kilometers from the district headquarters of Gulbarga. Karnataka state road transportation buses are there from Gulbarga to Gangapur for every 1 or 1.5 hours. This temple is in Gangapur and is one of the most bizarre, some say. At Dattatreya Temple, people are believed to be possessed, gathering inside on new moon and full moon days. They then hurl abuses at the gods. This is believed to free their body of the evil spirit in them. But not just this, people also climb on the walls and rampants of the temple and scream from there. Now coming in at number 7, Nizamuddin Dargah. It's said that no wonder if Delhi is serving as the capital, because it is not only the politics, glorious history, majestic monuments, and Delhi tourism for which the place is famous. When it comes to devotion and beliefs, you can see there is a place named Nizamuddin Dargah which has its own significance. It is not only the prominent Muslim shrines, but is also a place where one can rid away the evil spirits. The Dargah is visited by thousands of devotees every week during the year. People from all religious beliefs visit this place to feel the true Sufi tradition. You can hear the shrieks and screams from a deserted room on the premises. It is said that a priest performs an exorcism in this one room. When you break away from the crowded and tourist-infested part of Dargah, you may be able to find this freaky room here dedicated to the ridding of evil spirits. Now at number 6, Chandi Devi Temple. Chandi Devi is believed to be a violent form of the goddess, and this temple is said to be housing her. People who come to this temple during Navratri are believed to be possessed by this form of the Devi, as that time the spirit is most powerful. On other days, it's said that people who are possessed come here to rid of the evil spirit. However, it is unclear whether it works to get rid of the spirit or not. This is definitely a place I would not want to step foot into, even if I went on a trip to India.
Yeah, we are going up to see Chandi Mandir. Hopefully, it's better than what we in the temple before. Mansa Devi temple.
What is Chandi Mandir?
It's I don't know, it's a goddess of sacrifice or something, that would I understand from the name Chandi Mandir. It's killer of the evil.
Halfway at number 5, Sant Sabir Shah Dargah. This one is quite spine-chilling, so I suggest you get ready for it. The theories of this temple is that people say men chain themselves to the walls in order to cure themselves. Of what, you may ask? Well, it's not exactly said, but it suggests that it's to rid themselves of evil spirits possessing their bodies. Now what I want to know is why there are so many temples dedicated to rid spirits from people's bodies. Like, is this a common thing that happens on the daily in India? Let me know. This other destination is for those looking for a cure to demonic possession. This is a place considered by many to be the most far out. It is a scary, unnerving place filled to the brim with people thought to be in control of a deviant spirit. Here you'll see women offering prayers in a trance-like otherworldly state, while young men in chains attached to the wall wait for their own cures. Now at number 4, Harsu Brahm Temple. The story of this temple in Bihar is that it was built for a Baharian man who wanted to get worshipped by the people. It's said that his soul still roams here, and people come here to pray to him to get rid of the spirit that is possessing their body. The temple is pretty discreet, and you'll have to ask locals to take you there in order to find it. But that's even if you want to go there, which I personally wouldn't, but that's just me. But if you do go, it's recommended to ask for stories of people getting possessed and cured at this temple. Now at number 3, Kadungular Bhagadathi Temple. The earthly abode of goddess Bhadrakali, a gentler reincarnation of goddess Kali, the Kadungular Bhagadathi Temple witnesses a bizarre 7-day festival celebrated annually, the Baharani Festival. Men and women wearing red clothes are carrying swords, swarm this Indian temple, running around in a trance-like state. They hit their head with the sword, blood pours freely, and they enter the temple hurling choice abuses and singing lewd songs about the devil. Offerings are not made in the general fashion. Instead, they are thrown at the statue of the goddess, and the temple rafters are hit repeatedly with sticks. The temple is shut down for 7 days after the festival, admittedly to clean the bloodstains. Now at number 2, Kamakya Devi Temple. Preached atop the Nalchal Hill in Guwahati, Assam resides the Ma Kamakya Devi Temple, one of the most famous temples in India. The temple does not have a sculpture to worship, however, what it does have is the yoni. the wife of Lord Shiva, covered with a red silk sari. Every year during moon sun, the goddess menstruates, and the temple is closed down for 3 days. It is also when the Tantric Fertility Festival, or Ambubachi Mela, is celebrated here, till the 4th day when the temple reopens. It is also said that the underground spring that flows through the sanctum of the temple turns red on these 3 days. Devotees are offered a piece of red cloth used to cover the stone yoni during the days of menstruation as a prasad. Now coming in number 1, Devji Maharaj Mandir. You know, there's something spooky about a temple when it hosts a Bhoot Mela every year. Yes, Devji Maharaj is famous, or should I say infamous, for this ghost fair it conducts annually. This fair is on a full moon night, and people who are believed to be possessed come to the temple and get themselves rid of these spirits. You can see Babas hitting people with brooms to get the spirit off them. Some even claim to see spirits around or feel there is something strange in the temple. The spookiest bit is when people try to rid themselves of the spirit by lighting kampor on their palms, which is a powder that originally came from the bark and wood of the kampar tree and is extremely flammable.
You know, there is something spooky about a temple when it hosts a Bhoot Mela every year. You can see Babas hitting people with brooms to get the spirit of them. Some even claim to see spirits around or feel there is something strange in the temple.
At a number 10 spot, we have the Chong-ek Genocidal Center. As the name suggests, this was a pure massacre and a horrible tragedy in Cambodia's long, rich history. In the area around this genocidal center, approximately 17,000 people lost their lives and were buried, many whom were bound and blindfolded. For obvious reasons, these were known as the execution fields of Chong-ek. This is all but a reminder of some of the atrocities committed by the Khmer Rouge regime, who were known for their forced labor camps and malnourished citizens. Now back to the Chong-ek Genocidal Center. This is where the regime would take their prisoners to be executed and now serves as a memorial for this mass grave. This center even features a Buddhist stupa filled with different human skulls retrieved from the field, ranging from the elderly to some babies. Now many feel uncomfortable walking these grounds and sense the presence of those who are suffering there. Many others claim to see the apparition of Pol Pot, who is the leader of this devastating regime. But regardless, knowledge is power, and hopefully this educates us to never go down this route again.
Number 9, Haunted House on National Road. According to some, this is the most haunted place in Cambodia. There are many stories that describe it as a very mysterious island where a lot of people have either passed away or disappeared without a trace. Now on National Road number 5, from Kampong Chang Province to Prasat Province in Cambodia, just 5 minutes driving from Steung Bribo Bridge, on the right hand side, there's a house that most people stop by to pay their respect to, a famous ghost house. There's a very large monument built because a family that didn't particularly want to live created a curse. The curse took residents in a pit they threw themselves in to take their lives. Eventually people who drove near it started to pass away. It was also said that the residents who lived nearby started to pass away around World War II. At the time it was a wooden house, but now it's concrete.
At number 8 spot, we have Boker Hill Station. Boker Hill Station once served as a French settlement town and a hideout for the Khmer Rouge regime. Remember that terrible communist party I mentioned earlier? Through its time, many lives were claimed due to the hard labor needed to build all this infrastructure. This town even saw a war with the invasion of Vietnam. This regime used this place as one of their last strongholds, so many lives were lost defending it. Now it lies completely abandoned with only the rundown buildings to show for it. Fortunately, the place opened up for tourism, but many people report feeling sadness walking along these blood-stained grounds. Many people visit the old hotel in the town and they claim to see the apparitions in the corner of the rooms, standing there just watching them. Didn't think it was scary yet? Imagine this place at night. Boom, terrifying.
Now at number 7, Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. In the 1970s, this former high school was converted into the notorious S21 prison by the Khmer regime, where an estimated 20,000 prisoners were executed. Souls of the victims who were detained, starved, tortured, and executed are said to be roaming the S21 hall. Many unusual incidences have been reported there, including the guards who hear moaning and chains rattling at night. Today, the school or prison has been transformed into a museum where the ghosts of the deceased are still said to haunt the halls. Of the 20,000 prisoners that experienced the horror of S21, only approximately 6 to 12 are rumored to have survived the genocide. The museum employees even leave food out for the ghosts during their lunch breaks. They say that if they don't leave an offering, they can't enjoy their own lunches in peace due to loud noises and other ghostly activities.
At number 6 spot, we have the Independence Hotel. This hotel in Sanan Nookville, Cambodia is thought to be haunted by one of its former residents. The wealthy and the famous quickly filled the rooms of this hotel after after its 1964 construction. After a few years of prosperity, the hotel closed its doors in the mid-1970s to become a base for the Khmer Rouge soldiers. We can't escape this regime, can we? Rumors claim that the hotel conducted mass killings while using the swimming pool to house prisoners. It was abandoned and allowed to deteriorate before being restored in 1982 and serving as a hangout for UNTAC troops in the early 1990s. It was then shut down in 1999 and had a significant renovation and reopened to visitors in 2007. Despite the reopening, the new paint couldn't mask the atrocities done within the hotel. Guests would report cold spots in the rooms, and others would report an infamous spirit of a young girl who took her own life in one of the rooms, or even the aggressive spirits of the 4 robbers who were reportedly shot down in the mid-90s at the hotel. Think you can do a day at this hotel? Cause I can't.
Halfway, number 5, banana ghost tree. The story goes that a husband was sent abroad for business, and while away, the wife got sick and passed away. Her spirit became vengeful and started haunting the people of their village. When the husband returned, not knowing about his wife's passing, he quickly realized that the woman he found was not his wife, but her ghost when she unnaturally made her arm longer. He ran away from their house seeking help, but even after a proper burial, his deceased wife followed him to a Buddhist monk's house where he sought safety. As he was reciting prayers with closed eyes, his wife's ghost climbed one of the many banana trees near the monk's house, entered through a window, and immediately took the life of the man. A belief which many people still follow stems from this legend forbidding people from planting banana trees next to their houses, as her ghost spirit could enter through the house by climbing in on a banana leaf. If there was already a banana tree growing close by, all of the banana tree's leaves touching or near the house would usually be cut off for safety.
At a number 4 spot, we have Kokor. Kokor is an island approximately 20 kilometers outside of the capital city of Cambodia. This place is a complete tropical paradise, but as they say, beauty is often deceiving. Turns out this island is nicknamed Murder Island, and it got this name because, you guessed it, the Khmer Rouge regime was here, and they established a prison where they would use it as an execution site. This prison was estimated to have claimed the lives of thousands of people due to physical abuse and malnourishment. This is why many residents of the island claim to see the ghosts of the former prisoners wearing their black shirts and crying out for help in the middle of the night. They even left a brutal display of the remains of those who lost their life on this island. Don't know about you, but I'm still hung up on the fact that it's called Murder Island. Shouldn't this be a no-brainer for all of you guys as well?
Now at number 3, Champa Pagoda. During the broadcasting of a horrific night, a local radio programmee served as a channel for Cambodian people who would call in and share their paranormal experiences. Noah Vaseth, a government official residing in Stung Treng and a dedicated listener who tuned in on the show every Saturday and Sunday, said his life was almost taken by the ghosts while traveling along the road in front of Champa Pagoda in the Vay district. His story was this: it was 10 p.m. and I was on my way home from work. Suddenly, a bike ran into me. I avoided it and fell over, and then the bike just disappeared into thin air. This is not the first story of its kind to have been reported. Many claim that they have experienced similar incidences while traveling in the area, which is well known for being a place where hundreds of people passed from traffic accidents.
At number 2 spot, we have the Kampong Cham Ghost House. In 2005, the movie The Haunted House was filmed in this house. Before the shooting, all the actors prayed and made a super ceremony to pay respect to the spirit inside the house. According to rumors, a young couple moved to this newly built house. They dreamed that someone offered to buy a house for $3,000 in net gold. They immediately agreed, and the next morning, they woke up and they saw the gold was placed at the door of the house. But they did not move despite taking the gold. One day after waking up, they found themselves lying on the wilderness with their belongings. Since then, no one has dared to step into the house, and it supposedly doesn't have a speck of dust inside of it to this day.
Now coming in at number 1, Old Shingji Hospital. The now abandoned hospital was built in 1935 by the British colonial government as part of a military base camp in the area. It included 2 military buildings, blocks 24 and 37, that were part of the Kitchener Barracks, which housed the Royal Engineers of the British Army. However, the hospital's peak was short-lived, with the grounds being seized by Japanese troops in 1942 and used as a holding ground for prisoners of war. During the occupation, the hospital was said to have been used as a torture facility by the Japanese secret police, based on the fact that there were rooms with thick chains hanging from the walls and blood-stained floors. Before and after its closure in 1997, visitors and hospital guards claimed to have seen phantoms resembling nurses and soldiers roaming its corridors, as well as hearing unexplainable hellish shrieks. A movie was even filmed on the site, and the crew reported strange occurrences with unexplainable sounds, disembodied voices, and sightings of ghostly figures.
At a number 10 spot, we have the Night Marchers. According to Hawaiian lore, the Night Marchers were an ancient Hawaiian warriors in their past life, but their spirits march the island carrying torches now. But don't worry about hiding from them, because you'll definitely hear them well before you see them, as they play a distinctly loud drum while they march. They're believed to be stuck on the island for many different reasons. Some of the claims are they are looking to reclaim rightful territory or avenge a battle child they had previously lost. These spirits are not entirely evil, but they do demand respect. For example, if you are unfortunate enough to cross paths with them, try your best not to interrupt. And I'll stress you not to look into their eyes, as you will meet your doom from even one glance from these warriors. Since they are ghosts, nothing can stop them from their path, not even buildings. So when you see them, do exactly this. Or another option is to lie down on the floor, but wouldn't you think that walking away is a better option? No? Anyone? At our number 9 spot, we have Morgan's Corner. This one takes place in the island of Oahu and is one of the most grisly murders on this list. Morgan's Corner got its name from a doctor who happened to live at this particular bend of the road. Then in 1948, it claimed that a couple of prisoners escaped the local prison and broke into a house looking for any sort of supplies. They broke into the home of 68-year-old Therese Wilder, who was below the home of Dr. James Morgan. They gagged her and later took her life by means of suffocation. Even though both of these criminals were caught and sent to jail, many say her screams for help can still be heard to this day. At our number 8 spot, we have Pele, or the goddess of volcanoes, or she goes by another name called the woman who devours land, but I think that's a little bit too aggressive. It's said in Hawaii that every time a volcano erupts, it resembles Pele's longing to be with her true love. Her story varies, but the most popular rendition talks about a girl born in Tahiti who was sent away from her father because of her difficult temper and seducing her sister's husband. After leaving, she would encounter her sister once again, who took her life out of pure rage. This is when Pele became a full-fledged god before finding her home on a Hawaii island. Now it's said that if you remove the lava rocks on her island home, you will suffer years and years of bad luck and misfortune. And to this day, thousands of lava rocks are sent back to Hawaii due to people experiencing said bad luck. At number 7 spot, we have the Green Lady of Wahiawa. According to Hawaiian lore, a lady and her child would go to this botanical gardens often. Instead of taking their usual route on the bridge to go home, they decided to take the gulch because she feared of her children being struck by a car, since there was a fair amount of cars on the road at the time. When they took the gulch at night, the complex terrain separated the two, and the woman would end up losing her daughter. She looked everywhere in the ravine, but as nothing popped up, she went to the townsfolk for assistance, but no one wanted to help as it was very late at night. As she went back to look down once again, she ended up going missing as well. Now it's believed that she still roams the gulch covered in moss and vines with a distinct decaying smell, which is the reason why she is considered the Green Lady. She supposedly snatches children she finds in the area to fill the void she had from losing her daughter. And she's also spotted at the local elementary school acting as a mother picking up her own child. At our number 6 spot, we have the Koniana Cave. The Koniana Cave is located at the base of a cliff along the Farrington Highway of Oahu. The cave formed over 150,000 years ago. According to Hawaiian legend, Koniana Cave is home to the underground shark god Nanaue, the son of Komahoali, or the king of sharks, the most sacred brother of the fire goddess Pele. Nanaue was born with a mouth on his back and his mother never fed him meat, but when he was 7 he accidentally ate one and slowly would become this shark-like humanoid with razor-sharp teeth and gills. He had an appetite for human flesh after that and would use his cave as a lair until one of the day a group of villagers came down and hunted him down for good. Now it's said that if you see an elderly Hawaiian man cooking meat near a cave, it's actually the spirit of Nanaue. In the hump of our list we have the faceless ghost of Wale Drive-In Theater. Supposedly at the Wale Drive-In Theater, there's a faceless ghost of a woman who stands near the lady's bathroom combing her hair. When you get too close to her, she will toss her hair to the side to reveal her perfectly featureless face as smooth as polished stone. The drive-in is supposedly haunted by these ghosts because it was built to an old cemetery in Kahala, which has since been torn down and transformed into commercial and residential buildings. Reports of the faceless woman began on May 19, 1959, when the person who first spotted her was hospitalized after a mental breakdown. This would become big in local news and many would come to the theater in hopes to experience this tragedy. After, many women would be found unconscious on the restroom floor who were said to be approached by the faceless woman. At our number 4 spot were the Menehune. These Hawaiian mythical beings are said to be located deep within the forest of the island. These 3-foot tall beings are said to be experts at building, where legends say that they would build temples, fish ponds, roads, and even homes for the Hawaiians. According to lore, if you interrupt them when they are working, they will vanish out of thin air, but in some rare cases they come back to you with only negative intentions. A story goes that a group of teens went on a beach to have a bonfire. When they arrived, they noticed an odd looking shrine, but as they focused more on it, they noticed these little faces and shadows of little people in the forest behind it. Scared by this, the teens decided to find offerings to give to the shrine. One teen came out of the forest with an apple, running, after a group of Menehune started to circle him. All the teens managed to escape, but this incident remains a reminder not to mess with these beings. All the way at our number 3 spot, we have the Ilonani Palace. From scary sounds to unexplained apparitions, Inolawi Palace reigns high with paranormal activity. Built in 1882, the meticulously restored palace was once home to Hawaii's last ruling royalty, King Kalakaua, and his sister Queen Lilikuali. She was imprisoned in the palace within her bedroom for 8 months following the overthrow of the Hawaiian monarchy. Although the queen physically passed away in 1917, it's believed that her spirit, along with a few others, are still roaming the halls of the royal home. Visitors on tours and security guards on duty have reported hearing footsteps, smelling the scent of burning cigars, and seeing the silhouette of a woman standing in the window of what was once the queen's bedroom. At number 2 spot, we have the Daniel K. Inouye International Airport. This international airport, located in Honolulu, is considered one of the most haunted airports in all of America, and for good reason. The airport is said to be haunted by the Lady in Waiting, who is a blonde girl who wears a white dress and appears in areas where people aren't allowed. The story goes that a woman fell for a man who pledged to marry her, but at a random turn of events, he took back his promise and vanished out of thin air. After she suspected the man left on a flight, she went to that airport and took her own life in one of the bathrooms. Now it's said that her spirit still remains in the airport, but is more prevalent in the bathrooms, with reports of her slamming the toilet seats and tugging on people's clothes. At the airport is said another ghost who is known for choking guests. It's said that this ghost sits on the chest of others and gives them the sensation of choking. Guess I'm taking a boat on my next Hawaii trip. At a number 1 spot, we have the ghost of Pearl Harbor. The Pearl Harbor incident was known as the reason for America's entry into World War II. This happened on December 7, 1941, when the Japanese led an attack to destroy as many military and civilian vessels in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. This attack caused the casualties of around 2,400 US personnel, including 68 civilians, and damaged or destroyed 19 US Navy ships, including 8 battleships. It's said that the spirits of those who passed still remain on Pearl Harbor to this day. One of the ghosts that can be spotted on the grounds is the ghost of a man named Charlie. When heavy doors begin to swing back and forth, or lights being flickered on and off, everyone who works there just says, quote, "That's just Charlie," as if it was some casual thing or something. Don't know about you, but I would expect everyone who passed away from this attack to become malevolent ghosts in the future, but I guess this one just got tired of it all. As people approach the shrine built to commemorate the event, many claim to feel the instant feeling of sadness and a pain feeling. At a number 10 spot, we have the Devil's Chair. I mean, just by listening to the name, you already know there is zero goodness in this chair. So numerous physics and clairvoyants meet up year-round in Cassadaga, Florida, which is known as a state spiritual hub to showcase their talents. Specifically, they meet up in Lake Helen Cemetery. As expected, this spiritual retreat is a hive of spiritual activity, but one place in particular is said to give you the shivers. The Devil's Chair of Cassadaga is a big brick chair, and it's so-called haunted because many locals think that if you sit in it late at night when no one is present, the devil will come and visit you. The chair is said to be the way for the devil to communicate with you, but the odd thing is that the devil actually enjoys a cold one, you know, a beer. It's said that if you leave an open beer on this chair, it will be empty in the morning. So just to be sure, make sure you don't take a little rest in the cemetery, because it could be a terrifying experience.
Now at number 9, the Florida skunk ape, also known as the swamp cabbage man. The stink ape has been said to inhabit Florida, North Carolina, and Arkansas. The stories date back to the 60s and 70s, during the time of the Bigfoot mania, when the ape-like creature running on 2 legs was spotted in South Florida. The creature gets its name from its pungent odor, said to be a byproduct of living alongside alligators and other swamp inhabitants. There's actually an official skunk ape research headquarters in Okeechobee, where a researcher collects and investigates reports of swamp ape sightings.
At a number 8 spot, we have the grave of the Tallahassee Witch. The Old City Cemetery in Tallahassee, Florida is not your regular graveyard. In this cemetery lies a supposed witch. Yes, a real witch. The witch went by the name of Elizabeth Budd Graham, or Bessie, who was only 23 when she passed away in 1889. Her tombstone is the most expensive and the most noticeable. It has this nice stone wall with large granite vases, sculpted feathers, and a cross inside of a crown. The legend goes that Elizabeth bewitched a wealthy man into marrying her, and this is why her tombstone looks like this. The scary thing is that her tomb has a dark witch references chiseled all around the stones. A lot of the writing is written in unique poem-like fashion, but some witch references she made was doubly dead, which means that a witch can only be dead once and killed twice. Others who visit the tombstone report feelings of unease, and they often report strange individuals leaving items at the tomb. To this day, it's said that the fellow witches often visit the grave to leave gifts for Bessie.
Now at number 7, Spook Hill. In Lake Wales, there's a gravity hill that freaks out those traveling through by car. Stop your car in the right place on Spook Hill, put it in neutral, and watch as your vehicle rolls up the hill. On North Wales Drive, a sign says this: many years ago, an Indian village on Lake Wales was plagued by raids of a huge gator. The chief, a great warrior, killed the gator in a battle that created a small lake. The chief was buried on the north side. Pioneer mail riders first discovered their horses laboring downhill, thus naming it Spook Hill. When the road was paved, cars coasted uphill. Is this the gator seeking revenge, or is the chief still trying to protect his land?
At a number 6 spot, we have Robert the Doll. Now, I did a whole top 10 on this haunted doll, so go check it out in the other video if you haven't already. For those staying and don't know him, the story of Robert the Doll dates back to the early 1900s in Key West, Florida. A young boy named Eugene was given this doll and he named him Robert. Everything was good until the doll started to act super strange one night. On this night, Eugene woke up and looked at his bedside, and scary enough, the doll was facing and staring right into his eyes. Eugene's mother heard the boy scream, but as she was running to the room, she heard furniture banging all across the room. When she finally got into the room, it was completely wrangled up with Robert the Doll sitting on the edge of the bed. They then decided to lock Robert into the attic, but at night they would hear Robert's footsteps above them. Then when Eugene passed away, Robert the Doll claimed the life of a 10-year-old girl, and the girl's parents reported that the daughter would complain about hearing the doll at night and seeing it walk.
Halfway at number 5, Death Bridge. The Sunshine Skyway Bridge was a modern beauty when it opened in 1954. The bridge spans the mouth of Tampa Bay, connecting St. Petersburg on the north side with Bradenton on the south. But due to its height, it's also been an infamous spot for jumpers taking their own lives over the years. More than 200 people over the decade, according to some reports. Drivers on the bridge have also reported seeing a beautiful blonde hitchhiker on the bridge. When they pick her up, she begins to cry as the car approaches the top of the span. When the driver turns around to ask what's wrong, the woman has vanished. In 1980, the bridge was struck by a cargo ship, collapsing the central span and taking the lives of 36 people.
At a number 4 spot, we have the Pensacola Lighthouse. Legend says that a couple known for having constant fights owned the property. After a decade of living there, the lady randomly decided to take her husband's life, but she wasn't done yet. She proceeded to chop his body up in over 1,000 pieces and bury the pieces all around the lighthouse. The lighthouse's property also served as a place to treat Civil War soldiers, and many have passed away at the property as well. Visitors of the lighthouse claim to hear footsteps when no one else is there, and hearing their names being called throughout the whole building. Now, the site is being controlled by the United States Coast Guard, and they even allowed ghost hunters to investigate the area in an episode. Season 5, episode 5, if you guys are wondering.
Now at number 3, Sunland Hospital. Have you ever heard of Sunland Hospital in Orlando? It served as a tuberculosis hospital and later evolved into a training center for children with special needs. The facility closed after allegations of abuse and neglect and health code violations. The main patient building was turned into a park, and reports claim that ghostly patients still hang around. Park visitors reported hearing children's laughter when no children were around, and strange lights. Some also claim swings and other playground equipment moved by themselves. Apparently, after being torn down in 1999, all of that remains of the Sunland facility is the old administration building. There was a Sunland Hospital in Tallahassee too, but the location closed in the 80s after reports of experiments and an apparent lawsuit filed claiming abuse occurred at the hospital. The state of Florida then closed all Sunland facilities in 1983.
2 spot, we have the Bloody Bucket Bridge. Yeah, sounds really nice. During the time of the Civil War, an African-American couple moved and settled in Wauchula, Florida. The woman worked as a midwife and she was pretty content with her situation. As time passed by, the wife started to act unstable, and it was all due to the memory of her own child being stripped from her life during the Civil War. Haunted by the event, she took it on her own to suffocate babies as they were being born, and what's worse is that she told the parents it was a stillbirth. Then it said that she would take the remains of the baby to her husband, who would help grind them up and place them in a bucket. Later, she would take these buckets to the bridge and dump them into the water, hence the Bloody Bucket Bridge. People claim that if you visit the bridge on a full moon night, the water will appear red in color, looking like the blood of the baby she took.
Now taking our number 1 spot, Devil's Tree. Inside Port St. Lucie's Oak Hammock Park sits an old oak tree that locals say is evil, or more accurately, that something evil occurred there and it still haunts the land. In 1971, before the park was established, Gerard Schaefer, an ex-deputy for the Broward County Sheriff's Office, assaulted and took the lives of 2 19-year-old girls, Paulette Goodenough and Barbara Ann Wilcox, then buried them beneath an old oak tree. He was then arrested for homicide and stabbed till he passed away in prison in 1995. The girls have been missing since January 8th, 1973, but their bodies weren't discovered until 1977, when 2 fishermen noticed bones protruding from the ground. Local legends and ghost stories about the area include claims of blood-curdling screams erupting from the surrounding woods, ghostly apparitions, and camera malfunctions near the Devil's Tree. Police have responded to numerous calls claiming devil worshippers in hooded robes were performing rituals there. In 1993, the local pastor conducted an exorcism and put up a cross at the site. Numerous efforts to cut the tree down failed when chainsaws malfunctioned or axes broke.